Some minor rope considerations when doing a vertical entry confined space. This came up in a class recently where usually people will get their rope training first, and then confined space usually comes after that. And I'm a huge fan of some sort of double long tail or interlocking long tail bowline on if it's just a pure rope rescue, because usually it's a one and done thing. It's like the event is this, and this offers a lot of options for adjustability and everything. But when we do a vertical entry confined space, we don't want to join our two ropes together like this, because we need versatility in what we're doing. In a confined space, we may need to repurpose out lines for different purposes. And we could be putting more than, well, we are going to be putting more than one rescuer at a time into a space. And so at any point in time, any one of these lines could be moving up or down, belaying, etc. And so when we join them, we limit ourselves. Also, even though the bowline tied correctly is a nice small gain knot with a, if you tie it with a little loop there, it still is not as small of a gain as just like your scaffold or poacher's knot, your barrel noose. Also, a lot of people, if they train in rope, if they do it with me, they like that adjustability in an Aztec. And if you're hooked into an Aztec coming out of the space, look how much real estate you lose in terms of height. Like that's more than it's about 2 feet that you lose. And this is a problem when we try to raise people out, especially packages, subjects, victims. So when we do this, I want to keep it a lot more simple. So I don't need this adjustability and flexibility. So I'm going to de-rig the Aztec. I don't need that at all. And I'm going to take out my double long tail bow lines and then just do separate independent terminal connections. And the way we're going to do this, since we're going to be putting multiple people down there, and it all depends on how far we have to go down and how much rope we have in terms of length of rope to use. If my space is 50 feet, I can lower one person down 50 feet and then keep that rope down there and then piggyback on that, lower another person down another 50 feet. That's 100 feet of rope in use, minus whatever directionals and anchoring that we had to do. So we could probably get 3-4 durations. On a 300-foot rope, we can definitely realistically get 2 teams. Usually it's 2 people per team, and we can get people down into this space. Terminal ends instead, we're just going to go with a barrel noose on both of them. First rescue down the space is going to be on 2 terminal ends. So red is main, so go ahead, pelvic. Backup can be sternal or dorsal, doesn't really matter, dealer's choice. Again, I like sternal unless I'm doing cutting, hot work, that sort of thing. Cool, let's go ahead and take on main, take on belay. Okay, so we're going to do a single main, single belay technique for this. So we could do 2 tension rope system. It doesn't really matter. I don't really care for this application. So rescuers ready?
Ready.
Okay, main and belay ready?
Belay ready.
Okay,
Main ready.
Main and belay ready. Jan, go ahead and get the position, start waiting it a little bit. Let's test our directional, look at our resultants. Everything looks pretty good. Jan's going to go down into the space, and he's going to stay on the ground. He's going to give himself a little bit of slack, and then we're going to tie off the belay and make it a static line.
Entering the hole. Lower.
Okay, down.
Down on main. Down on belay.
And when Jan gets to the bottom, okay, depending on the space, we could probably call, hopefully like he has an idea of like the layout down there. Maybe we could give some initial call outs for some things that we're probably going to need a second rescuer to take down. So, on the ground, all right, pull red a little bit, just a little bit. So get some slack. There you go. Jan, just sit tight, we'll make your disconnects in a second. Let's go over to the anchors. The main, we're going to leave as a main, and then we tie off our belay line. And from here on out, it's going to be an independent self-belay for every subsequent rescuer, because we want to streamline the amount of lines and cordage that we have going into the space. Again, ventilation, ductwork, atmospheric monitoring, air lines, comm lines, all that stuff. It's a big drabbled mess. So the less actual rope material that enters the space, the better. And if we can find out a way to kind of streamline the amount of cordage and the movement of the cordage, we'll do that. So we're gonna do like a relatively easy, slick way to continuously send people down on their independent self-belay. Ready for the dog? And we're just gonna take advantage of the opportunity that we have here just to test out Reeta's new harness that we built for her, or her bridle. So Reeta's pretty flat for the hole. We can kind of lower her hind legs out a little bit on the Purcell, just to give her a little bit of a slimmer profile. And we're ready for down? Okay.
Yep, ready for down.
All right, sending Reeta down. It's okay. Yeah, good girl. Good girl. Good girl. Okay. There we go.
Faster speed.
Down, down.
Down, down.
There we go. Good girl, Reeta. All right. Going down.
Girl.
Let's go down and figure out how we manage the cumulative line that we collect. Okay, so Jan went into the space. We're going to talk about retrieval lines, OSHA regulations, and those standards in a second, but we're going to disconnect Jan's backup line, and now that he's in the space, let that hang. And if you look at how much slack we generated, lowering Reeta and Jan's going to come off his line, and depending on how far of a distance, I mean this is pretty short, but if it was significantly more distance, we can just overhand coil this up in a nice pile, because line management is going to be huge, and we can just set that down on a pile and make it distinctly separate from the next pile that's going to be generated when Gabe comes down. We don't want to keep all of our rescuers on these lines, because if they have to go a horizontal space away, that's just a recipe for just a spaghetti noodle mess of line entanglements. So you could argue that that's actually less safe. OSHA makes it, there's wiggle room. It talks about retrieval lines, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll stay on the ground.
On the ground.
All right, cool. DC all this, and DC, keep your backups and your primary with you, and just DC the rest. Okay. To facilitate non-entry rescue retrieval systems or methods shall be used whenever an authorized entrant enters a permit space, unless the retrieval equipment would increase the overall risk. So that statement right there kind of gives us some wiggle room as to how we rig in the space, depending on the layout or the internal configuration. So yeah, if we do use retrieval systems, each entrant shall use a chest or full body harness, which they are, with a retrieval line on the dorsal or any other place that we can justify. The rescuer is going to come off this, so our main posting line is free of all connections. There aren't any knots anywhere. All the entrants have their own grabs and way to get back on. And if we need to go like a horizontal space, what we can do, this is just a way to do it, is just to have the lead rescuer who's going to like try and find our downed worker, our victim, patient. We can either take the bag with us, or we can leave the bag somewhere anchored with the partner. If we can find a place to tie off, that's great. Otherwise, we just improvise, and this is going to stay with that rescuer. The team's down here trying to figure out who's going to do what. So the first lead in a horizontal, if they're going a horizontal away from that vertical entry, we can just take the terminal in, make sure the stopper not in it, and then we can press it around it, and this is kind of like a tether. And so Jan's not going to do anything with his tether. He's just going to walk, crawl, whatever, navigate through the space all the way. I'm just going to assume that this rope is going to pay out as Jan makes his way in. And let's just say that Jan got to our victim. We're going to put a victim in here. All right, so rescue number 2 is going to bring the packaging things that we need. In this case, we're using the spec pack. It's our go-to. Gabe is also hooked in, and it doesn't really matter where. This time, he's going to have to tend this as he goes, as he walks and joins up with the other rescuer. And before he leaves, if there's nobody else here, and he couldn't find a suitable anchor to just anchor our wide area search line, basically, just our tagline, our reference line. Just a quick, easy thing we could do. Again, it's not the way, it's a way. I can just hitch this onto the static belay line right here. In a pinch, that'll work. Okay, so Gabe, let's go to our victim, package it. You gotta tend that. There you go. Okay, as far as moving our package patient from point A to point B on a horizontal track, there are a bunch of ways we can kind of do this. It's really whatever is easiest and makes the most sense and most comfortable for the team in here. Usually the team is always at least 2. And so as a general kind of principle, golden rule is if we're moving our patient, we want to be able to account for clearing any obstructions at the head and at the foot as we travel. And so by implication, that means that we want one rescuer in front and one rescuer behind. We don't want to have both rescuers in front or both behind, because if there's a snag somewhere, kind of stuck. We can't work as a team to figure this out. Now, we can drag, just drag the patient with the rescuers, or if we want to drag using the tag line, we can also do that. So what that would look like is one of these guys would go all the way back to our anchors with their prusik sliding it out, and then we would attach the line in here, and then the tail rescuer would stay with the patient on the backside, and then the rescuer would drag on the rope system. Those are just two examples. Like, we can get into the weeds on other ways to do it. But yeah, so here we're just going to drag, and when we drag, if we can, we want to, not only do we want to focus on dragging the patient, but our rescuers also want to tend their line. So we don't want this to just stay with them, because when we come back up, that introduces like a loose line and a bite. And so if we can exercise line management as we drag our patient towards the exit point, the vertical shaft, we're going to do that.
Ready? Okay, ready on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Turn that slack.
There you go. Reset all the way up. There you go. There you go. All right. When you're ready to move, start calling it. Okay, move.
Keep going. Slack. All right, cool. So at this point, they're back over the space, so they don't need this tag line anymore. So they can disconnect their prusiks, like get rid of all this off of your harness, and let's get this tag line kind of out of the way. We can repurpose this tag line, or wide area search line, as a tag line for the victim, like to kind of steer him as he's coming up through the hole. Now, in this application, probably we want to get this patient out of the hole as fast as possible, so this time we want to send the patient up first, and then the rescuers will go up later. We're going to use an ASAP and a rescue center. We're still going to make the static belay stay static belay until the last man's out. We're going to continue to use ASAP belays, so go ahead and hook in. For our rescuers, usually like when we send something up on a loose line as an independent self-belay, somebody can just grab this and provide some tension so that this will glide up and not create like a dead leg. And the other rescuer can tend a tag line if we need one.
Ready?
All right.
Ready to haul!
Ready to haul.
Raise!
Rescue over? Yeah. You keep this top.
Yeah,
This is the slide. Right. And Jan, you're going to mind the tag line.
Tag.
There you go. Let's.
How you doing, Colin?
I'm flying.
Good.
Okay, resetting. We don't ever really want to get hoisted on a 2-person load. There's no reason for a rescuer really to be there. It just makes it more difficult to get through these tight spots. Okay, next rescuer up. So notice that we didn't have to drop any additional lines. We're just continuing on. We'll see that rescue center on. We'll back up ASAP. This time, we don't need a tag line since our rescuer can manage himself, but it's good to have the last rescuer in there just hold and keep this taut so this can glide up smoothly.
Ready to haul!
Ready to haul.
Watch that swing.
You got it. Okay, now it's time for the last man. Last man doesn't need anything because they came down on just terminal connections. So here you go. That's you. And this kind of facilitates just a clean way to kind of do your line management in a confined space. There are a lot of ways to do it. This is a way, not the way. But conceptually, trying to get everybody on board with what it looks like, that's the challenge. So it does require recurring practice, training, a visual to see kind of how it flows, and a keen eye to just making sure your ropes are clean and tidy at all times for every phase of your evolution.
Not to get the protein now,
On the ground. On the ground. On the ground.
Well, actually, sorry, but I don't know if I get the one. No, I've actually seen
If you know you're gonna be pulling or hauling a patient or victim up, there's one additional length or one additional distance that you have to pull just an empty line on that main in order to actually make sure you have enough for that last man. So because the number of people that enter the space, it could be 2, but there's gonna be 3 people coming out of the space. So however many people you get cumulatively in there, pull a full distance for one more person, that's gonna be the victim. And the way you kind of gauge how much rope that is leave like a spare kit, rescue cinder and an ASAP, and then attach that by itself. And then you just lower that last section down. And that's for the victim coming up first. You can do prussics, but prussics have a longer profile and rescue cinders have a shorter profile. And real estate is key when we're doing any kind of high point or vertical entry confined space, especially with an artificial high directional. I want everything to be as compact and minimal as possible. So double long tail bow lines, I don't want to do that. So just keep your lines separate. You can use them for different applications as you see fit. So yeah, just little tips and tricks. There you go.